Hello and thanks for tuning in. Today I've been asked to share my thoughts on the important role of universal regenerative values to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and our broader sustainability aspirations as part of the V20 stream. My name is Fabienne Michaux and I'm the Director SDG Impact at the United Nations Development Programme, or UNDP. I'm so impressed and heartened by the excellent work of the V20 so far on universal and regenerative values, and therefore delighted to have the opportunity to talk to you today about why I think values are elemental in putting us on a more sustainable path and helping us to achieve the SDGs. To put my comments in context, I'd like to first tell you a bit about the work we're doing at SDG Impact. SDG Impact is a global flagship initiative of the UNDP, set up in 2019 under its Sustainable Finance Hub. Our focus is on private sector activation, catalysing private capital towards achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and broader sustainability aspirations. This recognises the important role of the private sector in achieving sustainability and the global goals. Our vision is for a world where sustainability and the SDGs are at the heart of private sector value creation, no longer an add-on to what business gets done, but how all business is done. Our approach is twofold. First, helping to make the more than $100 trillion of private capital in the system more sustainable, because if we don't, we're going to continue to generate new problems at a faster rate than we're able to create solutions for our current problems. Second, making it easier for businesses and investors to target a portion of that capital to where it's needed most and can have the most impact, closing the OECD estimated $3.7 trillion annual SDG financing gap and achieving the SDGs. By bringing private sector ingenuity and creativity to the table through reimagined business models, cross-sector partnerships and collaborations, and blended finance solutions. We believe that this isn't only good for people and planet, but good for business too. Values at all levels are crucial for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and creating the impact we want and need to achieve. They are fundamental because they provide much needed context, the why and the how, if you like, that unconsciously frame all decisions we make, for good or otherwise, as the case may be, underpinning our motivations and intentions. But is our current to each his own defining of values getting in the way of change we need to see? Values in and of themselves in the context of the global goals are moot if they're not adopted or embedded in a way that's also regenerative. Adopting a core set of universal regenerative values to frame all decision-making, while also providing enough space for additional personal values by involving and giving agency to communities and their stakeholders in decisions that impact them, may give us the best chance of achieving the global goals and, importantly, the overarching tenets encapsulated in the SDGs. Creating a more sustainable, resilient and inclusive future for all by leaving no one behind, of reaching the furthest behind first, of acting to avoid harm, of not diminishing the possibilities of future generations by failing today to protect and restore the ecosystem we all rely upon to live, work, produce and sell, of working in collaboration and partnership towards collective solutions. Implicitly, values already underpin our dominant economic and financial systems within which most decisions in modern society are framed. But the values that have evolved over time and are now embedded in these systems are at odds with the collective societal goals encapsulated in the SDGs. These systems tend to treat planet and oftentimes people as infinite pool of expendable resources from which to privatise profits and socialise costs. As the eminent economist Joseph Stiglitz observed, one of the major insights of modern economics is that private and social incentives are often not well aligned. There is increasing urgency to address these shortcomings as we approach the limits of our planetary and social boundaries, which is undermining the future prosperity, sustainability and resilience of nations, our global financial system, institutions, businesses and communities alike. As we approach those boundaries, interdependencies across economic, social and environmental outcomes are becoming more obvious and escalating. In the words of the IPCC in its latest report, risks are now cascading, compounding and aggregating, and our responses need to be equal in measure. We only need to look at the impact the triple threats of climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the war in Ukraine are having around the world right now. For the World Economic Forum counts a health crisis, COVID-19, and an environmental crisis, climate action failure, among its top two long-term risks to the world economy, with the physical damage from climate change alone estimated to cost between 10 to 20% of global GDP per annum by the end of the century. That more than 50% of global GDP depends on high-functioning biodiversity and ecosystem services, yet we're experiencing biodiversity loss at an accelerating pace, and which will only hasten further with climate change. Current approaches and proposed solutions to address them are insufficient because they're atomistic, don't tackle the root causes, and do not take a holistic approach, including dealing with this misalignment in values and incentives between societal goals and our dominant decision-making frameworks. Notwithstanding more than $30 trillion invested in so-called ESG strategies, and a majority of companies now citing the SDGs in their corporate reporting, we're going backwards in terms of the Sustainable Development Agenda and generating problems at a faster pace than we're solving them. As Dan Neal, Social Transformation Lead at World Benchmarking Alliance, in response to findings from their SDG 2000 Index launched in January 2022 observed, businesses are overall on course to entrench rather than end the social inequalities that pose a global systemic risk, and their inability to put people at the heart of their thinking also undermines efforts to address the risks of climate change and biodiversity loss. We created the systems we operate within today. Therefore, we have the opportunity and the power to reimagine and strengthen those systems, to build forward better, to restore balance, and to create a more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive future for all. There's also potentially enormous economic opportunities for doing so. For example, achieving gender equity alone would increase the size of the global economy by 26%. Creating new circular and regenerative business models and solutions, leveraging new technology, collaborating with a broader spectrum of partners, including using blended finance techniques, can create new markets and reach billions of currently underserved consumers. We need to squarely place the responsibility of making these value judgments and leading by example on our leaders, to align incentives in the systems we operate within with societal goals, to set people up for success, not failure. Regenerative values in businesses can only happen when boardrooms get serious about it and own the decisions that are made. When all leaders start from the position of being global citizens first and foremost. We've tried to capture this Copernicus revolution-like transformational shift in mindset needed in the work we're doing at SDG Impact to help businesses and investors place sustainability, the SDGs, and managing for impact at the core of business and investment purpose and decision-making, with internal management standards and an assurance framework and SDG Impact Seal, training and education, and market intelligence. But on their own, they're not enough. Governments and policymakers, including forums such as the G20, also have a critical role to lead and inspire communities and organisations to be part of the solution and be part of something that's bigger than themselves, and to strengthen the enabling environment through good policy and regulation, including creating a level playing field, aligning incentives and investing in market infrastructure to make it easier for organisations and people to participate and make better decisions in the future. Adopting universal regenerative values would seem to be a good place to start. Congratulations again to the V20 team on what you've accomplished thus far. I'm excited to see where this work leads us in the future. Thank you.